Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Omar here, and today we're heading out to our local OTS store to play some good old Genesys. We're going to be playing with Lunalight. It's a deck that I'm very familiar with, but haven't quite played it enough over in Genesys. We're going to be preparing and getting our last round of practice right before the YCS coming up here in Columbus. So let's go ahead and see what today has in store for us. Well, guys, we ended up with locals. We went 2-1 out of round three rounds, and ultimately we had a really good takeaway, some good learning experience right before we get into our game state for YCS Columbus. All right, guys, here's a breakdown of the deck we played today. We ended up playing Lunalight. It is one of my favorite decks. It's also been one of the decks that I have found pretty good success with. So I'm going to be breaking down a bit of why I structured the deck the way that I did, as well as some of the point breakdown as of the time of recording, what those cards are, and what the allocated points are for each individual card. Starting things off, we've got one of our main starters. We've got our 3 Gold Leo. Gold Leo is really great. It's a really good solid card. Gets you the added benefit of adding a piece of the Lunalights that you may not have, but also allows you to discard one to trigger some of the effects that for a card when it's sent to the graveyard as a card effect. We've got 3 Clydo Chick, again another name, probably the most versatile card you have in the deck, as you are able to copy Leo Dancer straight from the extra deck, and this card can then be treated as Leo Dancer for the remainder of the turn. It's also got a pretty cool in-battle effect. If it gets banished the turn, you can trigger Clydo's effect and prevent your opponent from activating any effects during the battle phase. Keeping things going with our names, we've got 3 Black Sheep. Black Sheep is really great. Fun fact on Black Sheep, this card is not once per turn. The only effect that is once per turn is the effect to add a Lunalight name from the extra deck or face-up extra deck or from the graveyard when it's used as a fusion material monster. The discard effect is not once per turn. This was prior to those hard once per turn clauses. So you can essentially have 2 Black Sheep, maybe one gets negated, discard the other, you will get your polymerization, or add a Lunalight monster from the graveyard back to your hand. Up next, I've got a tech choice of mine. I've got 2 Crimson Fox. One of the things that I found over in Genesys has been difficulties with the Utopic Future Sexual, I believe it's what it's called. It's the new card, the cover card from Duelist Advance. Once players started playing that card, it's become a bit problematic to try to run over that with a Liger Dancer, especially with the built-in protection that it has for destruction. Crimson Fox gets around that by targeting it. When it's sent to the graveyard, you can target that monster, which part of the effect for the Utopic Future is that that card is the only card that can get targeted on the field. So this lets you be able to adjust and modify that card's attack back down to 0, so you can just freely run over it or just inflict damage and potentially go for game. 2 Martin, again, pretty standard, trying to go for names here, given that we are trying to play more of a blind second build here. Lunalight itself, the main goal, get a Liger Dancer, and then watch your opponent try to come up with an out. If they can't come up with an out, then the game is pretty much secured and sealed for you. We got 2 Emerald Bird. Emerald Bird's a pretty good card. Lets you, again, send names into the graveyard, triggering off the Lunalight's names and the effects for you to be able to also draw a card off of this card's effect. Furthermore, when it gets sent to the graveyard, it revives a Lunalight monster. The only caveat is it doesn't have its effect. If you bring back a Clydo Chick, you can send Clydo's, because Clydo's effect stands for cost, you're able to send another name to the graveyard as part of the cost. However, Clydo will not have or assimilate that Lunalight card's name. Running things off for our names and main engine, we've got 2 Silverhound. Hound is probably one of the biggest, or one of the best extenders, one of the best extenders we have for the deck, allowing us to special summon something from the deck. Now this is probably one of the better baits to bait out your opponent if they're playing anything that will prevent you from summoning from the deck, or something like a Skullmeister. Hound's a pretty good card to extend into and start gathering more of your names. But also, Hound has a really great and important effect. In the graveyard, it banishes itself and a fusion for cost to negate the effect or activation of a spell or trap card on field. Pretty good solid card. That rounds everything up for our names. Now let's go ahead and finishing up our monster lineup. We've got 3 Fractal, pretty solid card. Send one. It's basically a Foolish Burial for any level 3 Beast Warrior monster. The main purpose of this card is to send Hound into the graveyard, allowing you to either get the Lunalight monster that you need, or be able to summon out your Clydo, your Gold Leo, depending on what you may need to complete your plays. And here's our first pointed cards as of the time I recorded. We've got 3 Fuwalos and 3 Perulia. Now you may be thinking, why are we playing 6 Charmies in this deck? And that's one of the things that really actually came up interchangeably. It would either be Fuwalos was really good in the matchups this week, or Perulia was really good in the matchups this week. Ultimately, the main goal for Lunalight, again, is to set up the Liger Dancer, have something on the field, have that presence. Once it's on the field, it's hard for your opponent to get over it unless they're able to kaiju the Liger Dancer. But more on that a little bit later. That rounds up all of our monsters in the main deck. Moving into our spells, we've got pretty standard 3 Masquerade. Masquerade did miracles for this deck. I would say this deck really has a lot of grind with Masquerade. If you're able to bounce back the Masquerade with a Martin, targeting it and bouncing it back rather than leaving it on the field, it gives you some good follow-up in case your opponent's able to out your board for that turn. Given that we're playing 3 sheep, we are currently playing, or we played, 3 Polymerization. Pretty standard. Sheep gets you access to this. Masquerade also has the ability to discard a card, bring this Polymerization back from grave or banishment, which after that, if you discard a card, it enables you to essentially make this a Miracle Fusion, optionally banish cards from your graveyard. If your opponent was going to use a ghost spell or prevent something, or yeah, a ghost spell to prevent the effect of Masquerade, they would have to use the ghost spell at the time that you're adding this Polymerization back, because they can't chain a ghost spell to this card, given that it is an optional trigger and it doesn't have to be disclosed. Given that we have a blind going second, we are playing 2 heavy poly in the main deck. Pretty easy way and good way to cheat out Liger Dancer, setting the Leo Dancer from your extra deck into, or banishing it, taking 3,500 damage. Or if you have one name, you're able to send 2 Perfume Dancers and the 1 Leo Dancer to summon out your 1 Liger Dancer, which Liger Dancer itself wins you game. That's why it's the most heavily pointed card in our deck. So we're playing 2 Fusion. Lunalight Fusion is basically Shaddoll Fusion for those of you who are not familiar with it. If your opponent controls an extra deck monster, or a monster summoned from the extra deck, you're able to use a card either from your extra deck or from your deck. Pretty solid card. Works really well going second. Otherwise, it just functions as Polymerization, but it is prone to being Ash. Given that it is Genesys, I don't see very many people playing Ash Blossom. I see people playing Droll, but I don't see very many people playing Ash Blossom. Then close to running off our spells, we've got 2 Perfume. Perfume, again, one of those Lunalight cards that were not once per turn when it was created. So you're able to use this as a monster reborn for any Lunalight monster in the graveyard, as long as it doesn't say the clause must be fusion summoned or any of that. You should be able to revive your card. I believe the only fusion that this would summon would either be Cat Dancer and Perfume Dancer. Otherwise, it's got a secondary effect where you can banish this from the graveyard, discard a card, which wouldn't trigger the effect of your Lunalights, to be able to search for another Lunalight monster. Then finishing off our spells, we've got the 1 Dark Hole. Dark Hole, pretty self-explanatory. Nice board removal across the field. Being able to clear your own board when needed, because that is a necessity sometimes. Or being able to just clear your opponents before you make a play. And for our single trap, we play the 1 Serenade Dance. Now, given that we're playing a lot of Charmies, we're not playing the Foolish Barrel of Goods in this build, or we opted out not to play that in this build. But Serenade Dance, most of the time, I don't think I've ever heard anybody know what the effect is on field. It generates a token, but really what you play this for is for the graveyard effect. You'll be banishing this card once it's in the graveyard, and then you send a card from your hand to the graveyard. Again, the verbiage is very, very important. You're sending a card you're not discarding. That will trigger a Yellow Martin, that will trigger a Silver Hound. It'll trigger any Lunalight name in the graveyard as it was sent due to a card effect. So that's everything that we have over for our main deck. In our extra deck, we are playing 3 Xyzs. We're playing the 1 Exiton, the 1 Time Thief Redoer, and the 1 Outer Entity Nyarla. We opted to try to go for 2 Xyzs that would send the materials for cost. Or sorry, not for cost, for effect, rather than doing it for cost. And Exiton being free as a good board wipe, since Baguska is 100 points at the time of recording, this card is very solid, given that it's free. So it just helps you get to where you need to get to if you are finding yourself in a compromised position where your opponent has a lot of advantage made. Now for our Lunalight fusions, I've got the 1 Cat Dancer, 3 Perfume Dancer, 2 Saber Dancer, 2 Panther Dancer, 3 Leo Dancer, and our 1 and only Liger Dancer. Liger Dancer is pointed at 50 points, therefore we're only able to play the 1 of. Prior to them optimizing the point list, I believe it was the last point update or maybe the one before it, Liger Dancer was fully free. And it would open up the opportunity for any Lunalight player to be able to run multiple copies of this and a bunch of hand traps. Basically, you could run the modern version of the deck minus the pendulums, which is pretty strong, to say the least. Now, we opted for a lot of names here, given that we're trying to go for a blowout session. We're trying to go for a go in second build. The only card that I would say that would be our fallback as far as a name goes, if we get Retaliating Seed, or if we were to get Interrupted somewhere in a combos, but still need to set up something that will survive. It's the only reason why we're playing the Cat Dancer here. Cat Dancer can't be destroyed by battle. Obviously, it can be destroyed by card effects, though. Sometimes it does come up, but I have been considering trimming this down to removing the Cat Dancer, maybe another Panther Dancer, but Panther Dancer is a material necessary for a Leo Dancer. So when somebody gets over our Liger Dancer, we're still able to summon our Leo Dancer, which in and of itself is a very powerful card. Not being able to be destroyed by your opponent's card effects and not being able to be targeted blows up all special summon monster when it destroys a monster by battle. Or at the end of the damage step, which at that point, it doesn't matter if you destroy the monster or not, but it blows up all of the special summon monsters your opponent controls, and it can attack twice. So, pretty strong card, not as strong as Liger Dancer, which is completely unaffected by other card effects except Lunalight cards. So, pretty decent cards. Working through it, still a work in progress. One of the things that I see is an opportunity is to expand our Xyz line a little bit more. Now, given that it is a fusion-based strategy, we could optimize our points a bit more. Try to change off, maybe not play so many Charmies, play a bit more starters, such as a Foolish Barrel of Goods, or cards of that sort. On the side deck, it's still a work in progress as well. We're playing 3 Mask Restrict. Mainly it's just to prevent Liger Dancer from getting tributed, or some of our other end board pieces. The 3rd Heavy Poly for when our opponent, the idea is to go first, then our opponent would either make us go first, or they choose to go first, we substitute in that heavy polymerization just to make sure we're optimizing our deck accordingly to where we want to go, to we want to get to, how we want to play it. We've got 2 Twin Twisters. Twin Twisters, very solid card. Very good card to create some advantage for you. There are some decks in Genesys that like to play some back row to cause some disruptions. Twin Twisters I found to be pretty solid, and thus far it hasn't done me any wrong. So I'm pretty happy with the Twin Twisters. Another card that I found pretty good success with is Magic Deflector. Magic Deflector is a pretty good card going first against most decks that use continuous spells, such as Archmages or Radiant Typhoons if they use quick play spells. Just a very solid card. So pretty surprised that this card is not pointed. And the last part of our extra deck, given that we're not playing a full extra deck, we've got 3 flex spots at the moment, but we are playing the almost mandatory Illusion Gate. Fun fact with Illusion Gate, ignoring and summoning conditions, and this is why we play the Mask of Restrict. If the Liger Dancer does get tributed by either a Kaiju or Santa Claus, Lava Golem, you name it, and your opponent plays Illusion Gate, and they're able to blow out the monsters that they brought out, they are able to summon that Liger Dancer from the graveyard. Because the Liger Dancer was properly summoned, they're able to bring it back out. So it's a pretty good card, very, very strong. Surprised that this is still pointed at 0. I imagine these Illusion Gates will probably get blown out in the next point update. But yeah, as of now, that is what we're playing within our side deck. Well guys, be sure to take a look, take a moment and comment down below. How would you run this deck? What would you optimize the side deck to be? I've been enjoying the deck a lot, been really thinking that it's a very, very solid deck, even with all the points that's been assessed to it. And I will see you guys in the next one.